Welcome to another episode of The Latest with Maya. Today, I am thrilled to have a conversation with actor and comedian Elon Gold. Thank you so much for being on my show. I am.
Thank you, Maya. I'm thrilled to be on with you. By the way, if you think
you.
about this, you may be a fan of mine. I'm a fan of yours. And
Oh,
also,
thank
I
you.
don't have a show. You have a show. I don't even have a show. I'm a guest on your show. I know what you're thinking. Oh, big shot comedian, been on TV, doing theaters everywhere. But I don't have a show. Maya, you have a show. So who's cooler? By the way, before you start, and I know you have some questions for me, I just want to explain one thing. Why the
Yeah.
hat, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm wearing
Yeah.
a hat, and if you see what it says,
Oh, yeah.
so I was on a
Yeah.
show called Curb Your Enthusiasm with the great legend Larry David,
Yeah.
and that was obviously the thrill of a lifetime. Any comedian just would do anything to get on that show. And I was on season 11. I did a few episodes, and it was just the coolest thing.
Yeah.
But then I saw this, someone, there's been some anti-Semitism going on. I don't know if you heard about this stuff,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
there's been some stuff on campuses and everywhere. Let's not get political this early, but so
Yeah.
I just wear this to show my solidarity with my people and with all good people who are against hatred and bigotry in any group. I always say, and I say this in my act, the only groups of people I hate are hate groups,
Mm. Yeah.
right? Why
Yeah.
would I hate a group of people when there's so many individuals to hate? Anyway, but the point is, so
Yeah.
I'm wearing it for that
Yeah.
and
I
because it's
love that.
funny. Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah.
And there's another reason. I have an agenda. Can I explain it to you?
Yes.
So let's just say I have to color my hair every now and then.
Yeah.
I'm an old man. I'm not a young woman like you. I'm an old. I really am. I look amazing, but I'm 53.
I never
And
would have guessed.
thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So when I was in my early 30s, and you don't gray in your early 30s. You think, when you're older, you gray. 60s, certainly 70s, maybe 50, 30s. And I had like nice brown hair. And doing this TV show was actually with Pamela Anderson. It was called Stacked. And it was on Fox. You're too young, but this was like 15 years ago. And it was actually a great show and written by Steve Levitan, who went on to create Modern Family.
Yeah.
So brilliant writing, amazing cast, like Christopher Lloyd from Back to the Future, Doc,
Yeah.
Marty, and
Yeah.
um, and then by the way, I do impressions. We'll get to those later, but and Marissa Jarrett Winokur and Brian Scalaro. It's just an amazing cast. Brian Scalaro, and so I'm doing the show, and they do your hair and makeup. Normally, I don't get hair and makeup done, and I'm sitting in the chair, and the woman who's doing my hair, she goes, "I'm just going to cover these grays back here." I'm like, "What? You're going to cover what?" I'm 34. What are you looking at? Uh, no, there's some grays, and ever since then they've come out more and more. So I sort of have still like a young face, and I still go up for roles of guys in their late 30s and certainly 40s. So I
Yeah.
want to sort of, I'm not, it's for business. It's not for ego. It's not for what's the word when you're a vain? It's not vanity.
Yeah.
I really just I'm still playing a young guy in certain acting roles and in film and television. So I color my hair.
Yeah.
Now, the last time I colored it, my kids were like making fun of me, like, Dad, your hair's like crazy jet black. And every time I do it, it the next day or right away, it's just crazy jet black and my hair's brown. So it just looks weird to them. And then over a few days, it like becomes the normal color that I'm used to of brown, and then it becomes this weird red, and then you have to dye it again because it's just like it just doesn't look good. So I said, in order to avoid my kids mocking me, I'm going to go one color up. I'm going to go one shade lighter. And I did it, and literally, I don't know if you could see this, my hair is purple. That's why I'm wearing a hat. It's purple.
Oh.
It came out hot pink and purple. It literally looks like I should be over at UCLA in one of those protest encampments with the purple hair. It is ridiculous. So that's why I'm wearing a hat. Normally, when you're doing a big show like this, I would make myself look as pretty as I can. I would do the hair up. But today it's just this. Sorry, because this is going to take a while to grow out. All
Yeah,
right, good. But do you see
yeah.
it? Can you see how embarrassing that is? You see it, right?
I can kind of see it.
You're
Yeah.
sweet. You could see it. You're just being nice. All right, I'll shut up and
Well,
let you ask some questions.
well, I love your hat. So,
Thank you.
yeah. Um, so my first question for you is where do you find inspiration for your comedy? Is everything and everyone fair game?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, but it's a two-parter.
Yeah.
That's a two-parter. So we'll start with the is everything and everyone fair game, and then we'll go to where I get the ideas and stuff. In my opinion, if your heart is good and you're in the right place, everything is fair game.
Yeah.
Everything. And and everybody. And I have a special, you could actually watch it. It's on YouTube. It's called Elon Gold's Favorite People, right? And when you watch it, you see I make fun of all people, but I start by making fun of my people. So I start with some Jewish jokes and stuff like that to go, hey, I'm going to make fun of me, but I'm also going to make fun of you. But what I'm doing is it's not with malice or any kind of hate. It's what I call not making fun, poking fun.
Yeah.
And if you can poke fun at yourself and poke fun at your people and even some of your religions, traditions, and heritage, stuff that you love, that you live by and live for, I'm still going to poke fun at it because that's my job as a comedian. And then when I get to your people, I'm going to poke fun at your traditions and
Yeah.
and the way you speak or anything about you that I find funny. And I think when, Jerry Seinfeld just did a whole talk about this at Duke. And he
Yeah.
said, people have to keep their senses of humor. He said, it's very nice that everyone is hypersensitive to everyone's feelings, and you should be in life. But in comedy, you need to sometimes sit back and have a good laugh, even at the quote expense of others or yourself or whatever. And to me, when it becomes too PC and too woke, you're you're losing comedy because comedy is the whole idea is to have an observation about human behavior and then make fun of it or poke fun at it. And if you can't make fun because you're thinking, "Ooh, am I allowed to say this?" I never think, "Am I allowed to say this?" Never think that. I say things that no one would say to this day on stage. And I do it again from a good heart and from a place of love.
Yeah.
And if you watch the special, you'll see I love all people. And but I will make fun and poke fun at all people.
Yeah.
So nothing really is off the table for me. Even someone asked me, "Do you do any Holocaust jokes?" And I go, you know, I would never do a joke about the victims of the Holocaust, but if there was an area, like for example, I have a joke about the German chancellor going to visit the Holocaust Museum and how she must have had a conversation with her chief of staff going, "Und where we going? The Holocaust Museum, the Hollywood Museum? No, 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 not that one. But the Holocaust Museum. This one is also run by the Jews." And he goes, so okay, so we're going to the Holocaust Museum. Okay, I'll go, but awkward, very awkward. And it's the joke isn't about the
Yeah.
Holocaust. It's about the German chancellor
Yeah.
having to go to this museum. That's what the joke is. So the joke isn't on the victim.
Yeah.
And yet, I would never do, quote, Holocaust jokes, ever. But when I hear other comedians doing Holocaust jokes, I don't get offended. I just say, I wouldn't do that. Because even though I just said nothing is off limits, nothing should be, even the Holocaust. Even the Holocaust shouldn't be off limits. If you want to do a joke about that as a comedian, if you come from not an anti-Semitic place,
Yeah.
but come from I love Jewish people, about that Holocaust though, and then you have a joke about it, Good for you. You're reminding people of what happened in a world where people are denying the 6
Yeah.
million genocide. So I don't shy away from, speech that is funny and promotes peace and coexistence and love among all people. But I can't bring myself to doing that. So that's where I draw the line. Again, I'll do the Holocaust Museum, but I won't do a joke about the Holocaust or about concentration camps. But
Yeah.
I remember telling Larry David and defending him. He did a joke about how he said, "Boy, if I was ever, in the camps, if I was around at that time, I don't know how I would have approached women, to be like, come here often, like, what do you say? What's the pickup line?" And it's like such a dark joke. But
Yeah.
I said to him, I go, people were very offended by that joke because you're talking about the greatest human tragedy in the history of humanity. But I said, so it should be offensive. But the way I see it is you're just making fun of yourself. You're an awkward guy and you don't know how to approach women. And so now you're going to put yourself in the craziest scenario, a
Yeah.
concentration camp. So it's like, wow, now it's even more difficult. In a regular
Yeah.
setting, I can't pick up women. How am I going to do this in the camp? And I go, the joke was on you. So again, people will disagree. People go, well, I was offended by it. Okay, good for you. Whenever anyone says they're offended by my jokes, I say to them, I don't mean to offend. Okay. I mean to make you laugh. If you are offended, that's your problem and
Yeah.
not my problem. I have enough problems I'm dealing with. You got to deal with you being offended. I'm trying to make people laugh. And if there's 500 people in there and two are offended, I can't worry about them. I'm trying to make 500 people laugh, and that's tough enough.
Yeah.
And if you're offended, go deal with it. Ask yourself, why am I offended? It was just a joke. Deal with your own problems. We
Yeah.
all have our own issues to deal with. Don't put your offense onto me. That's your problem.
Yeah.
So that's how I handle that. So the
Mm.
first part of the question, though, which is an amazing question, and it is fascinating the process. Like I love listening to Howard Stern whenever he has like Billy Joel on, or he always talks about the process of songwriting, where the idea comes from. And for everyone, it's different, and yet it's also similar in the fact that people you could see the same pattern. Sometimes it's just a spark. Sometimes they're sitting there and they're writing. Sometimes it's divine inspiration. It just comes from above and just hits you. But for me, there's a couple of ways. One is again just observing life because comedy is just observation. So when you observe life, and if you have a comedic sort of lens to which you see everything through, which is I just naturally have, you know, so I see things that are funny, and then I report back to the others, and like perfect example, I was talking to someone and he was an Israeli guy and he was just doing this thing where he was um repeating things over and over and over and over again. It was just like saying, Elon, 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 listen to me, listen to me, listen to me, listen to me, Elon, please, Elon, please, Elon, please, Elon. And he just kept repeating. I'm like, it's so funny how they do that. But it wasn't good enough to be a bit. And then he did something that really hit me. I'm like, okay, this I have to talk about. And I wound up doing all of it and talk about all of them when I talk about Israelis. Again, poking fun of that group of people, like I poke fun of everyone. So I noticed that everything he said, every word he said that was singular, he made plural, and every word that was plural, he made singular. Like he was talking to me, he'd be like, I heard a lot of story about this, but it reminds me of this one stories, like one stories, right? He was like, when I eat
Yeah.
soup, I like to pour a lot of crouton into my soup, but some people they only put one croutons. So he was flipping plural and negative, and right away, as I'm just talking, having a regular conversation, in my head, I go, "Oh, that's a bit. That's a bit. I got to talk about this." And then more often than that, because people always, when I'm talking to them, they go, "Oh, are you going to use this?" I'm like, "No." Most of the time, I'm just having regular conversations, but sometimes something happens where I go, "Oh, that's funny." But most of my comedy comes from writing comedy and then new ideas come when you are in a creative mode And I'm in my office now and I just pace my office and go over, even when you go over old material, let's say you're prepping a show and you have to get it in your head. When you're going over old material, new ideas come out. And sometimes it's within the bit you're working on. You're like, oh, that's a new tag. I can add that to the bit. And sometimes it's a completely entirely different idea that sparks this whole new bit. And then you start writing down the new bit. And sometimes it takes literally as written. And I've heard this about songwriting too. It just comes out as you write, as you think it, you write it. And that's the song or that's the bit. For me, that's rare. It's happened a few times, but it's rare. I remember it happening with my English and their teas bit, which went viral. Did you ever hear that bit? With
I,
the English,
yeah.
yeah, the English, they have a weird thing with the letter T. Sometimes, they overpronounce the letter like that, and sometimes they ignore the letter completely. It's like, what happened? Where did the letters go? And there are two T's in the word letter, and yet they're nowhere to be found. And that was just written as I was saying it. And
Yeah.
then sometimes it takes months and even years. You could ask any comedian will have a bit that they'll tell you, I've been working on that for a decade. And you sort of put it, and it's a stupid 2 minute bit, but you put it away and then it doesn't work one night. And then you come back to it. And then 2 years later, you have a fresh take on it. And you go, oh, maybe I'll try it this way. So, yeah, it's either 10 minutes or 10 years. It's a crazy process.
Wow. Yeah. Um, is there someone who, without fail, always makes you laugh?
Yes, my best friend Ari Schiffer. He not there's a comedian Ari Shafir. He's also a brilliant comedian. But Ari Schiffer, since I knew since high school, and I'm never with him and not laughing. And we also write jokes together and write scripts together because he's brilliantly funny. So I am never not laughing. And anyone that I introduce him to and meets him says, "Oh my God, he's so much funnier than you." I'm like, "Yeah, I know."
Yeah.
He's just too scared to get up on stage. He's way funnier than I'll ever be. So when I'm with him, and I'm just laughing all the time. But I also now kind of surround myself with people like him, like Eli Leonard, who's this amazing genius up and coming comedian that I work with, always makes me laugh. There's Stephanie Younger. You should look her up on Instagram if you don't follow her already. She has like millions of views and she goes under Stefachka. Whenever I'm with her, she is just funny and she's so versatile and talented. So she does voices and dialects and impressions and I'm just always laughing. So there's a few people now that whenever I'm with, and then by the way, I know this is corny, but my kids are funny and my kids make me laugh. It's my wife I have issues with. I'm joking. I love you, honey. By the way, coming up on 30 years of marriage this June. Isn't that
Oh,
exciting?
yeah.
30
Congratulations.
years, l'chaim to me on this Spindrift. By the
Yeah.
way, do we get Spindrift to, will they sponsor us and send us cases? Because this is expensive. I can't afford this stuff.
Yeah, we should try.
Spindrift. It's refreshing, delicious, no calories, no sugar. Spindrift. Come on, that's worth a case.
Yeah, I think so. We'll have to send this to them.
Please do. Please
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
They'll be like, oh, you were on the Maya show? Oh my God, we're going to sponsor you. Forget Joe Rogan.
Um, so, who do you consider to be the gold standard of comedy?
That's another great question. And boy, I have to just give you sort of like a top five because I don't think there's one. I could tell you that like growing up, for me, Billy Crystal was just like, whoa, I just want to be like him. I just want to be a funny guy and get funny roles and do stand up and maybe one day host an award show or whatever. But he to me was the gold standard. Um, but also Eddie Murphy was like a revelation. When I discovered Eddie Murphy, I went, okay, I'll never be that talented or funny. I'll never be that cool. I'll never be that bright, but I want to be as close to the electricity and energy and comedy of that guy as I physically and possibly can be, because that is the model of just, he was the first rock star comedian,
Yeah,
besides, well, the
yeah,
truth is Steve Martin was sort of the first guy to do like arenas. No comedians did arenas before Steve Martin, but
yeah,
Steve wasn't like, Steve was hip, and Steve sold out stadiums, and also he's in my top 5,
yeah,
but he wasn't as like cool and rock star as Eddie. Steve was purposely goofy and wild and crazy guy. Eddie was the slickest, coolest guy on earth. And
yeah,
I'm like a dorky guy from the Bronx. I'm like, I'll never be like that, but I want to be.
yeah,
And just his comedy was just,
yeah,
you talk about LOL.
yeah,
And it's a shame that he's not doing anymore. I know why he's not doing anymore, because he knows deep down what we all know. As brilliant and as funny as he is to this day, you can't capture the lightning in a bottle that he had, in his 20s and 30s, again now as sort of an older guy who's just seen it all, done it all. He was so, yeah, it was through his young eyes. It was through his perspective. Now he's just like a very wealthy, crazy, successful guy, and comedy doesn't really come from that place. There's no rich people that start out that go into comedy. Who needs comedy when you have money? It's always the poor people like me and all these other schmucks that go into comedy to make some cash. But so his whole, he knows he'll be amazing, but he'll never be as good. And you can't try to top yourself, because you just start imitating yourself.
yeah,
So I think deep down he knows that. And I think we all know, come on, Eddie, you got to at least try. Who cares if you don't match that level of perfection and electric energy, and just, you'll still be a genius and amazing, and in my opinion he's the most talented man on earth to this day. There was a, in before his time, I think it was Jerry Lewis and Sammy Davis Jr. were the two most talented humans alive, and then in my generation I think it's Eddie, Prince. Prince played like, 9 instruments, and he acted and sang. Jamie Foxx, Jim Carrey. These are people that could just do it all, sing and dance, They could just do it all. You ever see me dance? I can't
yeah.
dance.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Um, so what motivates you even on days when you aren't really feeling it?
Yeah, and there's a lot of days. There's a lot of days where you wake up, you're not, I mean, I think nobody wakes up going, boy, am I happy.
Yeah,
Nobody wakes up like that. You wake up, you're like, what do I got to do today? Everyone wakes up like that, but you've got to get out of that funk. And there are many days that I don't want to write comedy, that I'm not in the mood to write comedy, but and some days you just don't. Some days you just go, I'm going to take this day off because, my head just isn't in a good, funny, goofy space. And some days you have to push yourself. Some days, most days, because, this is a living. I got a mortgage here. I got 4 kids to feed. So on most days, here and there, I'll go, I'm not doing anything today, whatever, because I work, weekends, and I work day and night. And if I want to take a day off, I think I'm entitled. So, but on most of those days that I wouldn't say they're dark days, I'm not really a dark guy, but I'm a guy like any other human with moods, and I'm not always happy. I'm generally happy, thank God. I had a generally happy childhood, although everyone has moments of childhood trauma
yeah,
and bullying and all that stuff. But generally, I had two incredible, and still do, thank God, amazing parents,
yeah,
two beautiful brothers that I grew up with. And I had a good, happy childhood. So I'm pretty much a happy person. But even the happiest of people have crappy days. Happy can still be crappy.
yeah,
And on those crappy days, you go, just do it. Just sit down, just pace, just write. And guess what? Nothing makes me happier than writing good comedy. and nothing can take me out of a funk or a bad mood than a good bit because I start laughing. The first person to laugh at my bits are me
Yeah.
because I hear them
Yeah.
for the first time and I go, oh my God, that's so funny. And then I go, oh, I got to tell this to other people. And sometimes I'm wrong and it just made me laugh. And maybe sometimes I took an edible and what?
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Thanks.
Yeah. Um, so of all that you have accomplished so far, is there something you are the most proud of?
I think my four best productions are my four kids.
Mm.
I just couldn't be more proud of them. They're just awesome. They're the sweetest, coolest, funniest kids. And I'm not just saying that. People constantly come over and tell me that. And that brings me when people say to me, "Oh my God, I'm your biggest fan," or "Oh my God, you're the funniest guy I know," and all that, and that obviously is is pleasing, and I it's reassuring, and it makes me happy. Nothing warms my heart more than when people come over and we go, "Oh my God, your kids are like perfect. Like, what did you do? Like, they're so kind and they're so cool." So it's like to me, the kids are the best production in show business. I think there have been some highlights. My first special, which is now streaming on Prime, called Elon Gold, Chosen and Taken, I'm so proud of, and it's just so good. And this latest one that I did, the one it's called, Sets in the City. I told you, Elon Gold's favorite people. That I just shot by myself, and I went to the Comedy Cell in New York City and did 5 sets in one night. We just edited together, and it has this fun audience participation, and it has a great theme. And again, while it pokes fun at people, the message is so important, which is make fun all you want, but love, don't hate. There's so much hatred out there,
Yeah.
so much hatred out there. And I think that message, and when I watched it back, I haven't seen it in months. I put it out, I think, like a year ago. But when I watched it back a few months ago, I was like, I'm proud of this because the comedy is some quality comedy and it's really funny bits. But the message of unity and equality for all and why do we all hate each other is something I'm proud of. And then being on Curb is just, again, the it's certainly a career high because when you're on the greatest comedy in the history of television, that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah.
You love everything I say.
Yes.
Why didn't I marry you? Do you think my wife at the end of every sentence goes, "Oh, I love that"? No, she goes, "What are you talking about?" That's what she'll say at the end of a sentence. And listen, we love each other, but after 30 years, it's more what? Why would you say that? Then, "Oh, I love that. Oh my God, I love that. Honey, I love everything that comes out of your mouth." But see, we just met, Maya, and if you knew me for 30 years, you would stop saying I love that and you'd be like, please stop talking. I'm begging you. I'm begging you.
Well, maybe, but since we just met,
We just met. This is our first date.
yeah. Yeah. Um, do you have any irrational fears?
I have a million.
Me
I
too.
I can't, especially in the state of the world it is today. I have so many rational fears, and then the irrational ones that this is supposed to be a funny comedy podcast. Let's not go to my irrational fears.
Yeah. Okay.
It's like everyone else. It's just the struggles of life. You know, there are fears of, am I going to, stop making money and feed my family? There are fears of, am I going to be healthy today or tomorrow? Am I going to get sick? You deal with that. And I have immediate family members who deal with that. And so that's not irrational, by the way. That's a
Yeah.
rational fear.
Yeah.
So I have those regular fears like everybody else. The irrational fears that come into my mind, I don't entertain for more than 3 seconds. I recognize them as irrational, but they happen all the time because
Yeah.
we all have them.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
My
that
irrational fear right now is will my wife see this podcast and get mad at me?
yeah.
Why do you make me out to be the bad guy? I'm like, you're not. I just have to, again, I have to make fun. That's my job.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I still need to learn that to not
Do it, Maya. Maya, we all have enough to worry about in life. You, me, everybody. When those irrational fears come in, you must immediately tell yourself, well, that's an irrational fear.
yeah. Yeah.
Moving on, and then go play one of my clips and you'll be laughing. You'll forget you ever had an irrational fear.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm gonna start
You're
doing
not even following me on Instagram. Let's be honest.
I am. I
Oh,
am.
yay. I have another follower.
Yeah. Um, so I am pop culture obsessed and go in stages of shows that I cannot stop watching. Is there a show that you are currently obsessed with?
You know, it's so funny because my kids are all obsessed with their own versions of shows from Game of Thrones to Obsession. My kids have the luxury of not feeding themselves, so I don't have time to get into these. These shows are a lot. So I always get in. I started watching Succession. This is amazing. And then I have to finish 1,000 shows. So the only show I started and finished because my son Darren was obsessed with it. And he's like, Dad, you got to watch it. We'll watch it together. And just to have that bonding moment of once or twice a week, we'll come into my office, turn the TV on, and spend an hour watching TV together. That's just so awesome. So just for that, I always make time for children. I don't make time for TV, but I make time for children. And if it's children and you get to just hang out and watch TV, what could be better? So that show was Breaking Bad, and boy, was that the most phenomenal drama I've ever seen, probably since I got into The Sopranos, which of course I didn't finish. Don't tell me what happens at the end. And I think he lives, right? They all live at the end. Anyway, so Breaking Bad is just pure phenomenal. It's just genius. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
And I got to meet the showrunner, which was really cool.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so
Vince Gilligan. And you would think Vince Gilligan is some mad scientist, psycho genius, because to write that level of, oh my God, depravity and drama, and
yeah.
you gotta have something that he couldn't have been more of a sweetheart of a guy. And no ego about him, that he created not one but two of the greatest TV shows ever. So that was a treat to get to meet him.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's so cool.
Not as exciting as meeting me, though, is it, Maya?
No, not even close.
By the way, speaking of impressions,
Yeah.
I don't want to go before the I do a couple of impressions for you, because I just did my very low register voice, and my favorite voice I do with the low register is Howard Stern.
Oh, yeah.
Well, this is very exciting. Let me tell you something, Robin. This Maya's got some show. She has got some show. And I thought I had the best podcast, but it turns out it's Maya. And then, of course, Maya, you're doing so well. I think you're probably doing better than anyone. You have this show, and it's better than, you look at these podcasts and they're not doing so well. They're not doing well at all. But then you look at yours and it's doing fantastic. Should
Well,
we end on that? Should we close? It's not going to get better than that. And one
yeah,
more Spindrift commercial.
yeah,
Bye, Spindrift.
yeah. I just have one more question
Sure.
for you, if that works. Um, so I love inspiring and motivational quotes. And this week, my favorite quotation is make it happen, shock everyone, shock yourself. This mission is personal. It takes a lot to start over again, but you owe it to yourself to become everything you've ever dreamed of. Be brave, trust the magic of new beginnings. Things will find their shape. Is there
As you would say, Maya, oh, I love that. And I do love that what you just read. It's so funny. I just so happen to have something that's sort of a mantra that I live by. It's shorter than what you just read. It's
a
just a few words, and it's something that you really need to apply in life. And it is very simple. It's this. Are you ready?
yes. Yes.
Hear everyone, listen to no one.
Mhm.
So, what that means is you should always be open to hearing other people's thoughts, opinions, everything about you, about what you should be doing, about I think your career should be. Da, da. Hear them all, specific ideas, general, micro, macro. Hear everyone, but listen to no one but you, but what your heart and brain and soul tells you and what feels right to you. So you can have everybody's opinion and you should hear people. You should hear others. Don't close yourself off to what other people even think that you should be doing better or worse or not doing or doing more of. Hear them, but listen to no one but yourself
Yeah.
because you know that's what that you have to stay true to yourself. You have to stay true to yourself. You know that, Maya. That's what you do. And that's
Yeah.
why I came on here. Come
Oh,
on, give me more.
you.
Oh, I love that. Give me one more.
Yeah, well, I was in my head about it, so I was trying to.
You're right. Now you're trying to edit it. Now you're trying to edit it. Do I
Yeah,
say, oh, I love that a little bit too much? Yeah, you do. A little bit.
yeah.
But I love that you say, I love that. I'd rather hear
Thank
that
you.
than, oh, I hate that. Love is better than hate.
Yeah,
Love is better than hate.
yeah, yeah. Um, so I think that's a great one. So yeah. Um, well, I have just had the best time
Thank
talking
you.
with you.
So did I.
Have made my day, so thank you so much.
You made mine. I love doing this, and I don't do too many podcasts because I just like I'm very focused on projects. But when you reached out, there was just something about you that I just said, you know what, I like her, and I like her style and her angle, and I was like, I'm doing this. And now that I met you, I like you even more. You're awesome.
Oh, thank you.
And just keep doing what you're doing and keep fighting the good fight and stay healthy and well and you're gonna keep thriving and surviving and doing amazing things with your life. I'm looking forward to them.
Thank you so much. That means a lot.
Be in touch.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope you have a great rest of your day.
We'll try.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a wrap on today's edition of The Latest with Maya.
Sponsored by Spindrift.